Women Creating Change is an inclusive community partnering with people and organizations that are actually focusing on underserved women to develop and strengthen the skills and resources that are needed to effectively identify the issues, as well as the things which matter to them the most, as well as advocating for themselves and New York's diverse communities. Its vision: all women have the power to be change makers, to create a more equitable New York City, and women are uniquely positioned to be leaders in their homes, neighborhoods, and communities. But unfortunately, many primarily low-income and immigrant women face significant barriers to participation in civic life. Joining us now to provide their point of view on this matter, I'm joined by the Program and Policy Matter at Women Creating Change, Lea Giddins, and then also board member at Women Creating Change, Dayanna Torres. And thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having us. We're happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I think when we talk about your organization, I think right now the work is very critical, particularly addressing the issue of women, and particularly at such a time like this. And so, Lea, I'll give you a little bit to share a little bit about your program and your information.
Sure. So you kind of gave a nice intro to the work we're doing, but our focus is really on increasing civic engagement for women in New York City. We went through a strategic planning process a few years ago where we had a lot of conversations with different organizations, community leaders, and women throughout the city to find out more information about what they felt their needs were and how we could make a difference. And so the organization about a year ago actually changed its name and started with a new mission and vision really focused on civic engagement to kind of move away from our previous more membership focus to really work with more women in every part of the city. So now we work on a programmatic level as well as a policy level. So working with people, meeting them where they are, depending on how interested they are in getting engaged, how much time they have. And then we also do advocacy work around different policies that are important.
So can you break down for me the definition of civic engagement for somebody who might be watching and say, listen, I don't quite know exactly what civic engagement is. How do you define civic engagement from your perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question. We define it pretty broadly, really about getting involved in your community, whether it's in different civic processes or political processes. So it could be anything from voting, completing your census, going to a protest, volunteering, participatory budgeting, really kind of a wide number of different activities about being engaged in your community and in the city.
Dayanna, talk to me about November coming right around the corner. A lot of people are really putting the word out there, the last minute, the full court press, if you will, in regards to voting. I know that there's some voting advocacy that you guys have been engaged in too.
Absolutely. Thank you, Daren. We're really excited because this is such a timely, it's such an important time in history where, because of the pandemic, the 2020 election is very unprecedented. New Yorkers must do their research. They must have a plan to vote. We want to make sure as an organization that we are facilitating the opportunity and providing the tools and providing the information for New Yorkers to create a plan, to have a plan that will ensure that their voices are heard. And with this election, we will see that the decisions that are made in the future will impact our families and our generations to come.
And so going forward, as we talk about November coming around the corner, voting advocacy is one of the things I know that you guys are engaged in, that you spoke to, Dayanna. Lea, give me a little bit more about some of the other advocacy work that's going on right now. I know the census is very important to a lot of people too.
Yeah, so our real focuses right now have been on voting in the census. We've done a lot of different education surrounding the census, putting together events, trying to encourage as many New Yorkers as possible to complete it. We've also done, we co-hosted a census ambassador training with the New York Immigration Coalition and the League of Women Voters and the New York Counts 2020 Coalition, which is really kind of a way for people to identify their own networks to get out the word about the census. So that's definitely been a focus. And then in terms of voting, we are advocating broadly for policies that would make it easier for New Yorkers to vote in 2020 and beyond. So areas like wider spread vote by mail options. But we're also a part of a coalition called Our City, Our Vote that is advocating for individuals who are not citizens to be able to vote in our local elections. So races like mayor, comptroller, public advocate. And so that's been some exciting work, and we've been focusing a lot on that.
Yeah. And when we talk about raising voices for women, I think a lot of times that is a lot of people are ignorant, I should say, to a lot of the issues that are actually plaguing women. We hear about the main ones, right? But there's so many other things when you talk about, women's advocacy and then also women's rights and really being a strong voice for that. Talk to us a little bit about raising our voice for women and some of the things that maybe we're not so familiar with that need some advocacy or need some attention.
Yeah, so I think that one of the things that we found in talking to people is that there are, well, there are obviously a lot of different issues, and they're intersectional. So a lot of people are facing a number of different issues depending on where they're located, their socioeconomic status, their race, their ability. So a lot of our work has been also trying to understand what a lot of the barriers to civic engagement are and what makes it hard for people to engage and kind of holds them back, and trying to think about our programs and our work as a way to remove some of those barriers. So we're working to set up some workshops, and we're thinking about language access, and language being also an important piece to get people involved, and thinking about family programming for women who have children, and a lot of the equal pay, a lot of issues as well surrounding women's needs.
Yeah. Diana, tell me a little bit more about, policy, because policy is very important, particularly in this day and age, and the shaping of policy. And so a little bit about the initiatives that you're working on the forefront with too as well.
Absolutely, Daren. Thank you. Civic engagement matters more than ever. We have 8.5 million New Yorkers, and 1 in 4 of New York City women live in poverty. As Lea mentioned, the gender equity gap, Hispanic women make, for example, 50 cents to the dollar to white men in New York City. And less than half of women in New York City are involved in the civic engagement process. Every component of the Civic Matters, as Lea has mentioned, creates the platform and opportunity to ensure that all women are able to leverage the resources available in their community to be able to respond to the needs that are affecting their community. So in terms of policy making, it's so important that we have representation of diverse group of women that are advocating for their rights that are affecting their health, their families, their neighborhoods, their safety, and their future, and also equity and education as well.
Can you share a little bit about Our City, Our Vote coalition?
Yeah, so the RCDR Vote Coalition is being led by some great partners of ours, the New York Immigration Coalition, United Neighborhood Houses, and there are a lot of different organizations involved. And the goal is to advocate for a piece of legislation that was introduced by Councilmember Rodriguez. It's currently in the City Council and has over 27 different co-sponsors. And the goal of that is to be able to expand voting rights to a population that adds up to almost 1 million different New Yorkers who are living here, working here, paying taxes here, but are not able to have a voice in local elections or decide who will be able to represent them and make decisions for them. So it's would apply to green card holders and other individuals who are here on a working visa or legally in different ways. And the focus is really to give them the ability to vote in our local elections.
Yeah. And you got 27 co-signers, you said, on that one?
Yes. Yes.
Are you getting a lot of opposition and pushback?
There's some that are obviously Councilmember Rodriguez and others have been really amazing advocates for it. But there is some pushback. We're hoping that there will be a hearing scheduled shortly to have a vote on it. But there is some resistance. But I think overall, the majority of people really support it. And we're hopeful that that will pass soon, and there will be a larger electorate for the upcoming mayoral elections.
Lea, I know also you talk about the Civic Matters initiative and actually what are the components of the program, because I want to be able to give people an opportunity to know a little bit more about all the great work that you're doing. And this is a great project here.
Yeah, so Civic Matters is our new signature program initiative that's designed to expand more opportunities for women to become actively engaged in civic life. It has 4 different pieces that we will be rolling out over the course of the next few years. The first, which is actually starting later this month, is a community workshop series, and the first one will be focused on voting. And those workshops are in partnership with different community organizations, providing information on various topics related to civic engagement. The next part of the Civic Matters program is that we're working to create an online platform and hub that will be kind of a go-to place for different resources about civic engagement, where you can learn a lot of different ways to get involved. You can access information and figure out how you want to be involved. The third part is a Women's Leadership Institute that we're working on in partnership with CUNY. And the last part is a fellowship that will be in partnership with Coro. And that will be like a 6-month fellowship with a cohort based, where women can really sort of pick a topic more specifically to delve into and advocate. And the goal of the program is really to be able to meet women where they are. So you can attend a 1-hour workshop, you can go online to find resources, or you can engage in a deeper way by being a part of this fellowship. And so as I said, meeting people at different levels.
I want to talk about the election for a bit coming around the corner. As we know that, this election probably is going to be one of the most historic elections that will go down in American history. So talk to me, Dayanna, about how do you feel this is a different one? I mean, when you talk about it being totally different, and then also as a voter, what are some of the things that I really need to keep in mind as I approach the polls?
Absolutely. Thank you, Daren. As you said, this is a historical, unprecedented election. There are 3 main ways that voters can select to vote, and it's so important that our families and our neighborhoods are ready to have a plan that they feel most comfortable with because of the pandemic. New Yorkers, again, must do their research and plan together. There are 3 main ways to vote for this upcoming election on November 3rd, by absentee ballot, by mail. There's also early in-person voting throughout all of our 5 boroughs, and also in person during the election. Absentee ballots must be requested by October 27th. If you're concerned about long lines on the election day, you can also cast your ballot early from October 24th to November 1st. If you go in person on November 3rd, we are encouraging everyone to, of course, wash your hands, maintain social distancing, wear a mask. So there's a lot of concerns about health that are in everyone's minds right now, but it's important that everyone knows that there are options that they can share with their families and neighbors, that they can decide as to what they're most comfortable with. But we want to make sure that people feel encouraged to make their voices heard, especially women, especially families and neighbors, to make this a community affair. Experts are saying that there is about the same risk of going to the polls as to going to the grocery store. So everyone should make the choice that they feel most comfortable with.
Well, we do know people are going to the grocery store, so hopefully they'll go actually turn out and go to the polls as well. Give me this while I still have you. You talked about voting. Talk to me about the census, and why is it so important for people to really take part in the census?
Absolutely. Census is about money, power, respect. A low response of people coming out to fill out their census means that New York will lose congressional seats and essential federal funding for everything from schools to healthcare to programming for women and girls. Actually, for every New Yorker who is not counted, the state will lose $3,750 per resident per year for the next 10 years. So the decision to fill out your census will impact your community and the livelihoods and the investments in our neighborhoods for a decade. I will encourage, if you haven't filled out your census, to go to 2020census.gov, that you can do it electronically. I personally reached out to my family, seniors, my neighbors, and said, hey, if you haven't filled it out, I'll help you do it. It takes about 2 minutes.
It only takes a couple of seconds, and hopefully people will take advantage of it. So many times when it comes to the census, we do get weak turnout for a lot of different reasons. Hopefully 2020 is the difference maker with regards to that. I want to talk about women creating change, Lea, and give people an opportunity if they want to become a part. Because you talk about a lot of the advocacy work, which entails getting supporters and partners and things of that nature. What can people do to get connected with your work?
Yeah, thank you. We would love for people to get connected and to get involved. I think the easiest way at first is to go visit our website, which is wccny.org. There you can sign up to receive our newsletter, which we send out once a month, that has a lot of different information on ways to get involved, ways to take action. We're really focused on trying to provide ways for people to take action and to have an impact. So that's one way. You can also follow us on social media. We're on all the different platforms. And I'd also recommend checking out our YouTube channel, which now has recordings of some of our most recent events. So anyone can watch those or attend our Census Ambassador training and find different ways to get involved. But we definitely welcome people to join us.
Yeah. And if somebody says, what do you have coming around the corner? How can I get involved? What would you tell them?
I would say we have a voting workshop coming up, and we'll be advertising some get out the vote efforts. So we would love involvement on that. We have some other events that we're working on down the line on some topics related to voting still and census. Those are some of the key things, but we have a lot of exciting things that we're working on right now.
Yeah. Well, ladies, I want to thank you so much for being with us here on the Social Justice Forums and having the opportunity to share a little bit about your organization. And of course, we want people to also stay connected and get connected to you. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes. Well, I want to tell them both thank you for coming and sharing with us on this segment. But guess what? We still have more show coming up. We don't want you to go anywhere. We're going to take a quick break and have more on the Social Justice Forums.